been a long time since I've done a video. The last format didn't really excite me too much. A couple of cool structured decks came out. Was a little active on my TikTok for a while and then just kind of took a break. Life happened and I still have some things going on. However, I was really excited about seeing this gentleman's deck profile for Dark Magicians. Wow. The thing is, his deck profile is a little expensive, so it's a little out of my price range for right now, because normally I keep up with the meta, and I haven't. So I thought to myself, okay, how do I keep up with his Dark Magician deck to kind of replicate the power, maybe not the end boards, and give it some utility? And I thought to myself, if I'm looking for something on a budget, I should probably help you guys decide something on budget too. Now, I've been labbing this deck for a little while. I posted it on TikTok, and some people, well, one individual made some good points about how it doesn't look like it has a combo line or follow through. It doesn't. It's purely based on what your opponent does. So I make very non-linear decks, and I think it'd be a good idea to kind of show you the deck profile, kind of give you my thought process, what's going on in my head, and really break it down and do a hand test, at least a couple of hand tests, so that I can better explain it. So this is my Dark Magician build, but real quick, I do want to tell you about the gentleman that did inspire me about this, because his video is amazing, and I think his build is superior to mine. If you're willing to spend the money, he has some wonderful ideas, and I really do think that you should go follow him, because, again, man, if not for him inspiring me to build another deck and do another deck profile, I don't know if I'd still be in the Yugi slump. But there are some other deck profiles I do want to share with you guys that have come up, but a lot of people are already covering those. And since I said I really wanted to try to make Dark Magician as competitive as humanly possible, here it is. Alright, so we have a Dark Magician deck profile that has a lot of different engines, a lot of things going on. I'm not even gonna lie. So let's jump right into it, since I already gave you a really long-winded discussion about everything else. The largest engine that we're playing in the deck is going to be the Dark Magician. You'll notice that there's not a lot for Rod to do, and it is a normal summon, and you'll see that there is 2 normal summons in this particular build, which, I'll be honest, and I'll get into that here in a little bit, wasn't really my intention. The intention was purely for utility, for fusion, because a lot of the cards in this deck are good for that utility. But we have our 2 Dark Magicians that we'll be using for Dragoon, and our Dark Magician girl that we'll be using for the Dark Magicians, also going to be using with our Soul Servant in order to get more advantage. Now, we can fuse just about anything that we need with Secrets of Dark Magic, but it's going to be mainly for our Dark Magician plays. And of course, Illusion of Chaos is any Dark Magician card or monster that you really need in the deck at that point in time. The rest of it's pretty standard. We're using the souls in order to get to our Dark Magician, Dark Magician girl, get them in the graveyard for our Soul Servant. Again, the name of the game is Advantage. We're also using a Brandon engine, and I'll be honest, it's a very small branded engine, and it's really to try to get other things fused off to either go into your Dragoon, your The Dark Magicians, or really mainly into your Mirror Jade plays, because Mirror Jade is actually a really good disruption for this deck, and Fallen of Albaz plus Dark Magician does make Dragoon. I've used the Dogmatica engine in Dark Magician before, and I feel like using Ecclesia at 3, 1 Fleur-de-Lis, 1 Maximus, 3 Nadir is really what we need, because it's stuff that we're going to be utilizing in the extra deck for utility, and fusion summons by grabbing Schism is really going to shine. Also, having that extra special summon with Ecclesia really helps with the board, and Fleur-de-Lis for that extra negate really does help. Oh boy, this is an engine I've been trying to get to work inside of this deck for a long time, is the Invoked engine. And I kind of had to really think about it, because the gentleman that inspired me for this in his deck build, he had mentioned for his Dark Magician build, get rid of the circles, get rid of the Eternal Souls, and it didn't make sense to me until I really thought about it. Those cards clog up the deck. Arguably, these cards clog up the deck too. I like having Magical Meltdown in order to make sure that my fusion summons don't get negated. Now, obviously, Branded Lost can do the same thing, but it's also hand advantage, because then I can get Alistair the Invoker before summon. Yes, it can get Ash Blossomed. It is hand advantage, but if I do have a fusion play to make in that turn, Magical Meltdown will protect it, and Invoked is a polymerization in the hand. So it really does help, and I am using my opponent's graveyard to fuse. We are using the 1 Shaddoll Schism, and it is unfortunate that Nadir Servant and Maximus are the only ways that we can utilize Shaddoll Schism, but that's alright, because it is a hard 40 card deck. So seeing some of those cards shouldn't be so bad, especially since Ecclesia can get us to our Maximus. Now, since a lot of our monsters already control the pace of the game, I figured Board Breakers was probably the way to go, and I've been actually using Board Breakers more than hand traps or negates for a while, and it just seemed like a better idea to use something like Dark Ruler No More, which kind of helps control the field a little bit, and then getting out our other fusion plays with them being interrupted. I mean, the deck is very mid-range. It can either control or it can OTK. You can utilize a combo in order to overwhelm your opponent with attack force. Now, obviously, when you use Dark Ruler No More, your opponent's not going to take any damage, but if you can go uninterrupted, yeah, you're going to go far with the deck. It's hard to sit here and say, oh yeah, by the way, the extra deck is pretty standard, when the reality is, it's standard to the archetypes that you're playing, but looking at all this together kind of seems like a jumbled mess, and trust me, I do understand that. It all comes down to what line of plays you need at the moment. Again, it is a very non-linear deck, and if you go in uninterrupted, it works out pretty good. Do I suggest taking a blind second? Not really. That's hard to justify, really, to be honest. But, you know, you've got your Dragoon for your negate, your The Dark Magicians to add more hand advantage, because you're playing spells a lot in this deck. And you are playing 1 trap, but you're able to draw off of those effects. And of course, Mirror Jade is another interruption. Your 2 fusers here, I mean, they fuse. This is just to get more advantage into your Ecclesia to set up for your Fleur-de-Lis play in order to negate, of course, negate OTK machine. And before you ask, yes, we are playing a fire monster in the side build, which is Ash Blossom, so you will have access to Invoked Purgatrio, just not in the main board, but in the sideboard. And of course, I pronounce it Agadeus. I've heard other people pronounce it Ogoideus. I personally don't know how you would pronounce that. He works out pretty well as another floodgate. And speaking of floodgates, you have your El Shaddai Winda. Now, there's a lot of discarding with this deck, and I do understand that, but you actually do have a lot of cards to discard, because you will discard for App Colone in order to get your Schism play, but there are things that you can save in your hand to discard, like if you don't need that extra rod, get rid of it. Soul Servant, it becomes a pot of greed if you have both your Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl in your graveyard. There are certain things, and I think it's just the way that I think and set up plays, and it's really hard to understand, and I do apologize. It's why I'm actually making this deck video, to kind of explain my thought process, because the original deck that I am borrowing ideas from is far more efficient and can get out end boards with linear combos way better than this one. But this is supposed to be, one, a budget build, and two, it's supposed to be different. I'm trying to match the power scale without using the same engines, and it's kind of a challenge for me. Now, Entis is going to be your pop. We do have an answer in the sideboard, an extra Albion, so you don't have to play the Entis if you don't want to. There's a sideboard that I will show you that I'm honestly still working on, and of course the line for Maximus, so you just link off one for Moon Maiden for your Invoker in order to go into your Makaba. Then of course Selene is a one card access code talker, and you have access to a ton of spells. So to make access code off of Selene shouldn't be too hard, but again, that's if the deck goes uninterrupted. Now, you can have 3 interruptions to play through sometimes. Sometimes 1 interruption kills you and every deck bricks, but that's why I want to show you the hand test to kind of give you my thoughts on how I would run certain hands. The sideboard is 100% just all speculation right now. I think definitely the cards I would keep for the sideboard on a regular would be the Ash Blossoms. They might even find themselves back in the main. I was running them in the main for a while I was doing the original tests. Lightning Storm is kind of situational and doesn't always help. That's why it's in the sideboard. Cosmic Cyclone, to be honest, really for those Labyrinth builds. I feel like Imperm is... I don't know. Imperm's a hard one right now because it's a good trap. It's a good hand trap. I don't know that in this build it does exactly what I need. Whereas Skill Drain is actually really good in this build. As long as you can get really high attack bodies on the field, activate Skill Drain, it's almost just free attack. And then of course the extra Albion, instead of sending your Entis, having a second Albion to send in order to fuse with is paramount, so you don't have to worry about trying to recycle that, but really you should be trying to send your Ash Dragon anyway. I just really had a hard time figuring out whether or not I wanted a second Albion or, Entis, so I ended up putting one in the side, one in the main, and originally Entis was in the side and the second Albion was in the main. So it kind of comes down to, I'm still ironing that out because I've had matches where the second Albion really came in clutch, and I had matches where Entis really came in clutch. That is kind of a exploratory thing even for me. Alright, so we're going to be using the deck as it is. We're not going to be siding. We're using just the main board as I've shown you. I need to shuffle this up really good because I just had everything in order. So, watch as we draw. 3 Dark Magicians, wondering how the heck we did that when there's only 2 in the deck. Don't worry, for the folks at home, I am going to skip this part forward to up until I stop shuffling, just to see what kind of hand we get. Alright, so we're done shuffling, and right off the top, we have a really interesting hand. And a lot of this we can actually probably... Okay, so, looking at this hand we can probably set up our win to play, and we're going to assume that we're going first. Let me put this this deck right here. Okay, so this is the kind of non-linear stuff that I'm talking about, right? So we have 2 Soul Servants, which great discard fodder. We have our Nadir Servant. We have our Magician Souls. It seems like one thing that we can really do right now, I feel like I would activate Magician Souls, and if I had to, I would chain Soul Servant to chain block, just in case, right? So if we activate the Magician Souls, I would say go for our Dark Magician. Okay. But we're not going to summon the Dark Magician, we don't think. So if they try to Ash Blossom it, just to chain it, just to say, okay, so Magician Souls, we're going to chain Soul Servant. Well, I'm going to chain Ash Blossom, so they'll hit the Soul Servant, which means we'll still be able to send the Dark Magician to summon our Magician Souls, because we're going to do some tomfoolery. But let's say it went uninterrupted. What do we grab? Well, we grab Dark Magician Girl. And the reason being, we put her on top of our deck, is because we have Soul Servant. Are we going to be able to discard her right away? I don't know. Let's find out. So now that we've done that, Soul Servant is once per turn, I believe, using it this way. So we're going to go ahead and start our Nadir Servant play by sending our Entis. And since we're going first, it's going to fizzle, unfortunately. But it does help us get into our Maximus. Now we can banish Entis for Maximus. We can send 2 cards, which at this point, Titaniclad and Apcalone are going to be your best bet. Had a little camera malfunction. Sorry, it's been a couple of months since I've done this, guys. I apologize. So, with El Shadal Apcalone, this is where we can go into our schism. And we're about to get some really cool interruption. And this is actually a pretty standard Maximus play. So, discarding the Soul Servant. Now, I understand you're not always going to have all of this discard fodder. I get it, but we now have some interruption, so we can set our Shaddoll Schism on our end phase. We can activate Titaniclad to special summon Ecclesia in order to grab our Fleur-de-Lis, and this is pretty standard Dogmatica shenanigans, right? And we could have risked it for the biscuit and gotten the Dark Ruler no more out, which is fine. We could have absolutely done that. So now our hand looks like this, our back row looks like this, and the first thing that we do is Shaddoll Schism. And if it were me, instead of banishing the Titaniclad, banish the Soul Servant. We could have used him for draw power, but that's okay. Now we have one special summon we can make, and we can interrupt with our Fleur-de-Lis. That's the kind of stuff I think of. So going into our next turn, we can draw our Alistair the Invoker, and we can banish our Soul Servant to draw off the top our Magician's Rod. And this is the conundrum people are explaining is, well, now we have two normal summons. How do we get around that? And the reality is, well, the way I see it, what does my board look like? What seems like would be the most optimal play? Rod is in my hand, yes, but I don't have any Dark Magician fusion that I can really go into, and I've already used one of my Soul Servants to banish, so I don't think Rod would be the best choice. I would probably go for Alistair and make my Link play to go into, because I don't want to get rid of any of these guys, because if anything, that might be game. And I don't even think, let me see, yeah, you can't do your Link play because of Winda, but depending on the state of their board, this could be game with Agadeus, Agoideus. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Don't hurt me. But let's do another hand test just to kind of see what else we can do. Oh gosh, all that boring shuffling. Okay. So, let's draw our 5. This is a really interesting hand. Oh my goodness. So, this right here, more or less what I'm talking about when it comes to, now we can really use the Dark Magicians to do more. So, we can play Secrets of Dark Magic. I would keep Alistair in the hand, and I would keep, probably keep Dark Magician in the hand too, because what we can do, so, this is where my brain goes. Normal summon Alistair. Grab Invocation, which is our polymerization in hand. Right? Now we can chain things. And we can get out a couple of summons. So, from here, I would play Invocation, chain Secrets of Dark Magic. So, we would go into the Dark Magicians, and yeah, we just used up our whole hand, more or less, to go into Dark Magicians and Dragoon. If we thought that our opponent was going to stop us, but let's wait a sec. how could we play this differently if we think we're going to be uninterrupted? Or just throw our inhibitions to the wind? Well, I think what I would do is I would play Alistair the Invoker, and let's say we're uninterrupted, grab Invocation. So now I would link. I would link into Magistus the Moon Maiden. Then from here, I would play Secrets of Dark Magic. And I would go Dark Magician Girl and Moon Maiden into the Dark Magicians. Now from here, what we can do is play Invocation, which is like our polymerization in hand. Show the graveyard. Using Dark Magician and Fallen of Albaz to go into Red Eye's Dark Magician. Red Eye's Dark Magician. Yeah, oh wow. To go into Red Eye's Dark Dragoon to draw off of our magician. So now we have discard fodder. And follow up for the next turn. Not the most optimal play, but we do have our negate and our tower. We do have draw, so if they activate a spell, we're going to get something that we can set. Even if they don't, we can negate and make him 4,000. Those are just a couple of the avenues. Obviously, the Dogmatica avenue is the better avenue, but what do you guys think? Take a look at the other guy's channel, because I think he has a superior build, but is this something that you would like to see tweaked? How would you tweak it? And until next time, guys, it's your move.